Growing up with a Game Boy Advance in my hand, it was like a powerhouse right in my pocket. I mean, there's just something about the 32-bit aesthetic of some beat-em-ups that modern games barely offer. Right now, I'm gonna share 12 GBA beat-em-ups that never needed a massive GPU to let you have fun. Double Dragon Advance, 2003. If you asked me which game defines the Advance era, it's this one. I remember being stunned by how much deeper the combat was compared to the NES versions I played as a kid. You aren't just limited to a basic punch-punch-kick combo. You can perform mounting attacks, headbutts, and even those elbow drops that were so iconic in the 80s. And, you know, I've always appreciated how the developers at Million managed to make Billy and Jimmy Lee feel like actual martial artists rather than just stiff sprites sliding across the screen. The inclusion of new stages and enemies is just perfect, because then you're never mindlessly pressing buttons. I still get a rush of adrenaline when I'm cornered by a group of Lindas and Abobos and have to use the environment to break free. River City Ransom X, 2004. I've always had a soft spot for the Kunio-kun series, but River City Ransom X on the GBA is where the RPG brawler hybrid is damn near perfect. When I first popped this into my silver GBA SP, I was already impressed by the amount of customization. Cherry on top, the EX version adds so much depth to the original NES formula. And one thing that stands out for me is that when you're walking into a bookstore or a sushi restaurant, your stats are boosted. The humor is timeless, but the mechanics are surprisingly complex. Modern looter brawlers often feel like a chore, but in River City Ransom X, the progression feels personal and rewarding. I mean, I was spending a lot of hours just trying to find the right combination of items to maximize my Acro Circus move. It's a game that respects your intelligence and rewards your curiosity. Astro Boy, Omega Factor, 2003. If there's a holy grail of GBA beat-em-ups, this is it. The first time I used the X dash to zip through a screen full of enemies, it felt like nothing else on the handheld. It's fast, it's frantic, and it's beautiful. You have to manage your power meter to unleash special attacks like the finger beam or the arm cannon. But what really blows me away, even years later, is the Omega Factor itself. It's a system where you meet characters from Osamu Tezuka's entire library to boost your stats. Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure, 2004. Most Dragon Ball games focus on the Z era for its power levels, but I've always preferred the original series. Advanced Adventure gives us Goku's early journey, and you will love the pixel art. The combat feels incredibly fluid, and you will enjoy unlocking the one-on-one duel mode, which plays more like a traditional fighting game. It's like getting two games for the price of one. One minute you're platforming through a forest, and the next you're engaged in an aerial battle on the flying Nimbus. Needless to say, modern licensed games could learn a lot from this title. Oh, how I wish to be a kid again and just play this game for hours. Final Fight 1, 2001. When Final Fight 1 was released, I was skeptical. How could the Game Boy handle the arcade classic better than the SNES did? But man, was I wrong. This is arguably the definitive way to play Final Fight. Not only do you get the full roster of characters, including Guy, who was famously cut from the SNES port, but you also get additional content like Alpha-style dialogue and unlockable versions of Cody and Guy in their Street Fighter Alpha outfits. Every punch landed has a weight to it, and the GBA smaller screen works in the game's favor and makes the sprites look dense and detailed. Gekido Advance Kintaro's Revenge, 2002. Gekido Advance is a game that I feel doesn't get nearly enough credit. Who doesn't love playing a game with late 90s anime aesthetic? To this day, I am genuinely impressed by the environmental interactions like, breaking crates. And using weapons felt more integrated here than in other games. You had to time your counters and manage your health carefully because the game is unapologetically difficult. I mean, I'll admit, I died a lot when I first played this, but the just one more try factor is crazy with this one. One of my favorite things is how the story is told through stylish cutscenes. It gives the protagonist, Tetsuo, a purpose. And come on, think about it. Modern brawlers can feel a bit hollow when it comes to narration, but Gekido creates the kind of mystery that pulled me in. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 2003. When Konami returned to the TMNT license for the 2003 animated series, they brought back that classic arcade energy I loved. And what I think makes this GBA version special is how distinct each turtle feels. Do you remember choosing Leonardo for his balanced reach, only to realize that Michelangelo's speed or Donatello's range was better suited for certain stages? It is structured with individual acts for each turtle, which was a brilliant move and made me learn the nuances of every character rather than just sticking with one the whole time. And it's a TMNT game, so wall jumps and special moves are plenty and obvious. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus, 2004. Another TMNT game. The sequel took everything from the first game and dialed it up. I was blown away by the fact that you could switch between turtles on the fly. This changed the entire dynamic of the beatings because if I was struggling with a bulky enemy, I'd swap to Raph for high damage. If I needed to clear a gap, Donnie was my go-to. The overall design in Battle Nexus is much better than its previous version. There's an emphasis on exploring things and fighting hidden secrets. And for this reason alone, Battle Nexus is seriously very engaging. You would spend a lot of time trying to track down all the hidden crystals. You go from the sewers of NYC to alien planets and feudal Japan. What I'm trying to say is that you'll never get bored with the scenery. Chef's kiss. Batman: Rise of Sin Tzu, 2003. Playing a Batman game on a Game Boy could have gone poorly, but Rise of Sin Tzu is a surprisingly competent brawler. Heavy inspiration by the new Batman Adventures, I must say. As you defeat enemies, you earn points to buy new moves and gadgets. It's not as deep as the Arkham games, obviously, but for a handheld title in 2003, it felt revolutionary. What more could a little kid ask for? Famous villains like Scarecrow and Clayface are also there, but Sin Tzu is the real standout. I would like to add that this game challenges your reflexes and your ability to manage crowds of thugs. Be prepared for thumb cramps. X-Men: Reign of Apocalypse, 2001. This was one of the first GBA games I ever owned, and it's still one of my favorite X-Men titles. The premise is simple. The X-Men are trapped in an alternate dimension ruled by Apocalypse, and they have to fight their way home. You can play as Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, or Rogue, basically anyone and everyone. There's something so satisfying about seeing Cyclops unleash an optic blast that clears half the screen. There was also a versus mode, which was a blast to play with friends via the link cable, almost like a LAN party but for small kids. And don't get me started on how comic book accurate it felt. Nearly perfect here, no complaints. It doesn't try to be a complex RPG or a cinematic masterpiece, but rather a great blend of both. Easily 8 over 10 in my opinion. Bruce Lee: Return of the Legend, 2003. This game was a dream come true for any martial arts fan. It's developed by Vicarious Visions, and they did a cool job of getting Bruce Lee's likeness and movement style into a video game. I was impressed by how much it felt like a Bruce Lee movie because, of course, fights were fast. Almost a blink and you miss it. And hey, you have to sneak past guards and use the environment to gain the upper hand. No, don't mindlessly punch and kick everyone on sight. Be a smart fighter. This variety in gameplay made the fight encounters feel more meaningful. Seeing Bruce Lee pull off his iconic kicks and nunchaku strikes is a joy, especially because the levels are inspired by his films. So if you've watched the movies, you'll love the game itself. One Piece, 2005. Before One Piece became the global phenomenon it is today, we got this fantastic GBA brawler. It covers the East Blue Saga, and I was struck by how colorful and energetic it was. Say what you want, but as casual gamers, we need to see colors on our screen. I mean, not everyone wants to play tone-deaf muted games like Silent Hill or Resident Evil. Anyways, the developers managed to translate Luffy's rubber-like abilities into a system where you can use the Gomu Gomu no pistol to hit enemies from across the screen, or the Gomu Gomu no Gatling for close-range chaos. Weird names, huh? The ability to call in other members of the Straw Hat crew for assist attacks was fun, and I loved summoning Zoro to slice through a group of pirates. What a great way to experience the beginning of Luffy's journey. No complaints here. Marvelous verdict. The Game Boy Advance might have been a small system, but its titles had more depth and character than many big-budget games today. Which of these was your favorite? Would you like me to find some hidden gems for other GBA genres next? Share your thoughts in the comments below.